You know, it's genuinely startling when you look at the numbers around software supply chain attacks.
Hmm.
We're seeing this average annual surge of what, 742% over the last 3 years? It's
Right.
not gradual.
No, it's explosive.
Really, yeah, an
Yeah.
explosion in the financial impact they're projecting. Over $80.6 billion by 2026.
That's a massive figure, and it's
Yeah.
up hugely from even 2023,
Right, a 76% increase. And you have to remember, that's not just numbers on a page. It means real disruption, real costs for companies.
which eventually impacts consumers, impacts all of us.
Exactly. So this deep dive is brought to you by Stonefly. They're leaders in enterprise storage, backup and disaster recovery, AI storage, and cloud solutions.
Right.
And if you're looking for secure, ransomware-proof storage, Stonefly actually sells air-gapped and immutable storage options. You can contact sales at stonefly.com to schedule a demo.
Good to know.
So getting back to it,
Oh,
what's really driving this dramatic increase in threats? Why the software supply chain specifically?
well, it fundamentally comes down to how we build software now. It's
Oh,
completely different.
how so?
We've moved away from, monolithic self-contained applications. Now it's all about distributed systems.
All right.
We rely heavily on open source components, vast libraries of code written by others. We use cloud infrastructure, cloud services.
And lots of automation, right? The CI/CD pipelines.
Exactly. Continuous integration, continuous deployment. That whole ecosystem, while fantastic for speed and innovation, has just dramatically expanded the attack surface.
Right. It's not just protecting the final product anymore.
No, not at all. You have to secure every single step, from the moment a developer writes a line of code through the build, the testing, the deployment, all of it.
And that pressure, the constant demand to release faster, 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 does that make security take a backseat sometimes?
It absolutely can. There's a real risk that in the rush, components get pulled in that maybe haven't been fully vetted.
Or aren't integrated quite securely enough?
Precisely. You might pull in a third-party library, super common practice, but it could have vulnerabilities. Or worse, it might even contain deliberately malicious code.
Wow. And without constant checks.
Without rigorous, continuous auditing and monitoring, that risk just propagates straight into your final product and then out to your users. It's a huge potential problem.
Let's talk about that automation piece more. The DevOps, the CI/CD pipelines. You said it's great for speed, but it sounds like there's a paradox there for security.
There really is. It's a double-edged sword. Automation is brilliant for streamlining things, getting code out quickly. But that intense focus on velocity,
Can overshadow the security checks.
it can. Automated processes might deploy code or integrate some component without the necessary human review or deep security scrutiny it really needs.
So a vulnerability in one library could get spread incredibly fast.
Think about it, yeah. If a popular library has an issue, automation can push that vulnerability out across potentially hundreds of applications or services almost instantly. The tools designed for efficiency amplify the risk.
And are the automated security tools enough to catch these things?
They're valuable, definitely. They're great for catching known issues, common vulnerabilities, but they often struggle with uh, novel attacks, 0 days, or
Yeah.
more complex, sophisticated threats.
Right. Things they haven't seen before.
Exactly. And given the sheer scale, I mean, some organizations run thousands of pipeline jobs a day. A subtle intrusion, something cleverly hidden, could easily go unnoticed for quite a while.
Giving attackers plenty of time.
Okay.
Okay, so how do these attacks actually play out? Are attackers using totally new methods or adapting old ones?
It's often a mix, but a lot of the initial steps are familiar from traditional IT attacks. Reconnaissance is key.
Figuring out the target's setup.
Yeah. Gathering information, what build tools are they using, what's their deployment workflow, who has access, they'll map it all out.
And the initial breach.
Often targets the people,
Oh.
developers, DevOps engineers, anyone with access to that critical infrastructure, compromised accounts, phishing, stolen credentials. That's still a very common entry point.
So they get a foothold through a person and then pivot to the systems.
Correct. Once they're in, a major goal is tampering with the source code itself. Or, even better from their perspective, the build process.
Why the build process specifically?
Because modifying code during the automated build is much stealthier. The changes might not be in the main source code repository where developers are looking. It gets injected later.
Ah, so the malicious code, the implant as you called it, gets compiled right in
Exactly. It becomes part of the legitimate software package.
and might pass standard checks after compilation.
It often does. Things like code signing or basic integrity checks might just verify the package that includes the malicious implant. They don't necessarily see the implant itself as separate.
And then the vendor ships it.
Unknowingly, they become the distributor for the malware. The customers install the update or the new software, and boom, they're compromised. The vendor might have no idea.
That's terrifying. It sounds like there are so many places this could go wrong. Where are attackers having the most success?
Honestly, almost everywhere across the chain. We've seen successful attacks targeting source code repositories like GitHub or GitLab,
Okay.
developer tools, even IDEs, the build servers themselves, the testing environments. Package managers think NPM, PyPI, Maven. Container registries, both public like Docker Hub and internal
Or
ones.
keep going.
Artifact hubs where compiled code is stored. Infrastructure as code templates Terraform. CloudFormation configs. Even the software update mechanisms that push changes out. Cloud provisioning tools. It's broad.
That's a huge list. With
Okay.
so many points of attack, is there one method that's particularly worrying right now?
I'd say poison pipeline execution, or PPE, is a major one. It's really gaining traction.
Poison pipeline execution, what does that involve?
It's basically manipulating the commands that the CI/CD pipeline itself runs. Remember, these pipelines are essentially just scripts.
Often YAML files or some domain-specific language?
Exactly. And they automate everything, fetching code, building it, testing it, deploying it.
And these pipeline scripts themselves, they're often version controlled, like code, right? Anything is code.
Yes, that's the paradigm. Infrastructure is code, policy is code, pipeline is code. It brings benefits, like repeatability and tracking changes. But it also means those pipeline definitions are now potential targets.
So if an attacker gets access to a developer's account,
And if the organization doesn't have strict review processes for changes to those pipeline files,
they could just change the script, inject malicious commands.
they could. Or add a whole new malicious pipeline. Imagine the control that gives them. They can basically dictate exactly what gets built and deployed, potentially inserting malware right at the core.
That is a chilling thought, like letting the fox design the henhouse security.
Pretty much. And it's not always about directly editing those main pipeline files either. It can be more subtle.
How so?
They might alter other files that the pipeline uses, like maybe change a configuration file for a security scanning tool, telling it to ignore certain things.
So the tool runs, looks clean, but it's been told to ignore the attacker's malicious code.
Exactly. Or they could exploit features in the tools themselves. Many CI/CD tools have plug-in or extension systems. Attackers might find a way to run code through those extensions without ever touching a version-controlled file.
That's incredibly sneaky.
It is. We've also seen cases where pull requests, maybe from a forked repository, manage to bypass required checks because of some misconfiguration or even a bug in the CI system.
Okay, this is complex. If you had to summarize the absolute key risks we're facing here in the software supply chain, what would they be?
All right, number one, lack of visibility. Not knowing what's actually in your software, like needing a proper SBOM, a software bill of materials.
Right. What components are you using?
2, uncontrolled use of third-party stuff. Pulling in libraries and dependencies without proper vetting or ongoing monitoring.
Makes sense.
3, access control. Poor permission management, giving developers or systems too much access across the board.
Least privilege principle violation.
4, code tampering and that poison pipeline execution we just talked about. Direct manipulation.
Got it.
5, malicious code injection, the classic inserting bad stuff. 6, vulnerabilities in infrastructure as code, leading to misconfigured insecure environments.
Okay.
7, secrets exposure, hard-coding passwords, API keys, things like that, right in the code where attackers can find them.
Still happens all the time.
Sadly, yes. 8, insufficient pipeline-based access controls, or PBAC, not locking down what the pipelines themselves can actually do. And finally, 9, just generally poor credential hygiene. Weak passwords, reused passwords, no MFA. It amplifies everything else.
That's a comprehensive list. And within all this, one type of malware seems particularly relevant. Remote Access Trojans, or RATs. What exactly is a RAT?
So a RAT, a Remote Access Trojan, is malware specifically designed to give an attacker full administrative control over a victim's computer remotely.
Like handing them the keys to the kingdom.
Exactly. They get complete control. And they often get onto systems sneakily bundled with legitimate-looking software, maybe a free game or utility you download, or attached to phishing emails.
And once it's installed, what can the attacker do?
Pretty much anything. It creates a hidden backdoor. The attacker can then connect whenever they want, control the machine, see the screen, access files. They can even use the infected machine to attack others, making it part of a botnet. And RATs are often designed to be stealthy, disguising themselves as normal system processes.
Making them hard to spot.
Very hard. They often connect back to the attacker's command and control server using standard network ports, trying to blend in with normal traffic.
How do they typically get installed? You mentioned phishing, bundles.
Yeah, those are common.
Mm.
Also, malicious websites that trick you into downloading something, peer-to-peer file sharing networks like BitTorrent, sometimes even physical access, the evil maid attack scenario.
Okay, so they have remote admin access. What kind of specific actions can they take? What's the real danger?
Oh, it's extensive. They can install keyloggers to capture everything you type. Passwords, bank details, private messages.
wow.
They can access and steal any file on your system. Turn on your webcam and microphone without you knowing. Spy on you.
That's deeply unsettling.
Take screenshots. Deploy other malware, like ransomware. Wipe your hard drive completely. Delete or modify files. It's total control.
And you said they're persistent.
Yes. RATs are usually designed for long-term access, not just a quick smash and grab. They can embed themselves deep in the system, modify things subtly, and just sit there collecting data or waiting for instructions.
So the damage isn't always immediate.
Right. It could be long-term spying for blackmail, using your computer's power for crypto mining, launching DDoS attacks against others, even storing illegal material on your machine remotely.
And in critical sectors.
The nightmare scenario is compromising industrial control systems, power grids, water treatment plants. The potential impact there is enormous.
Okay, so bring it back to the software supply chain. How do RATs fit into that picture?
They are a perfect payload for a supply chain attack. That implant we talked about being injected during the build process, it could very well be our RAT.
Ah, so instead of infecting one person via phishing, the attacker compromises a popular software product.
And uses the vendor's own update mechanism or distribution channel to push our rat out to potentially thousands, even millions of users simultaneously.
That scales the attack massively.
Dramatically. It turns a single supply chain breach into a widespread botnet or espionage platform almost overnight. It really connects these two threat types.
Okay, that really drives home the severity. So defenses. What can organizations and individuals do? Let's start with if you suspect a RAT infection.
First thing, disconnect the machine from the network immediately. Cut off its communication.
Isolate it.
Yes. Then make sure your antivirus and firewall are fully updated and run a deep scan. Be incredibly wary of downloading software from unofficial sources or opening unexpected email attachments.
Basic cyber hygiene, but critical.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
At a more network level, admins should look at blocking unnecessary network ports and actively monitor outgoing traffic for anything unusual, connections to suspicious IP addresses.
And for the broader software supply chain defense, the stuff we talked about earlier.
Multi-factor authentication everywhere is huge,
Yeah.
especially for developers, admins, CI/CD systems.
Makes unauthorized access much harder.
Right. Security awareness training for everyone is vital. People need to recognize phishing, social engineering, keep everything patched. OS, browsers, applications, libraries. Use intrusion detection systems, intrusion prevention systems, and really enforce that principle of least privilege. Don't give accounts or processes more access than they absolutely need to function. Limit the blast radius if something does go wrong.
Makes sense. Are there any subtle signs, maybe things an end user might notice that could hint at a RAT being active?
There can be, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes the antivirus program itself might start acting weird, failing, running extremely slowly. That could be the RAT interfering with it. Unexpected system slowdowns. Your computer feels sluggish, but you're not doing anything demanding. That could be the RAT using resources.
Right.
Weird browser behavior, getting redirected to strange websites, pages not loading correctly, finding files or programs on your computer you don't recognize.
Uh-oh.
And the really creepy one, the webcam indicator. Light turning on by itself when you know you didn't activate it.
Yeah, that would definitely be alarming. These are all really important things to be aware of. It just highlights how complex this whole software supply chain security challenge is now.
It really is. It's become central to overall cybersecurity.
Right.
Understanding these threats, how our rats work, how they plug into supply chain attacks, is absolutely the first crucial step if you want to build any kind of effective defense.
Absolutely. And when you think about how interconnected everything is, how dependent we are on software, and the potential scale of these attacks, it really forces you to ask, what fundamental changes do we need in how we develop software, how we secure it, to build a genuinely more resilient digital future?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Ah.
It requires constant vigilance, constant adaptation from everyone involved.
Indeed. Well, this deep dive was brought to you by Stonefly. They're leaders in enterprise storage, backup and disaster recovery, AI storage, and cloud solutions. Remember, for secure, ransomware-proof storage, including air-gapped and immutable options, check out Stonefly. You can contact sales@stonefly.com to schedule your demo.